it began really, didn't it, that with the module on body stories.
Mm-hmm.
And you began with that amazing image of you, the very first layer. And I think you've been talking quite a lot about how mum was really obsessed about thin, being thin.
You've definitely remembered that
Yeah,
correctly. Yeah, she was obsessed, first of all, with herself being thin, and then with me being thin, and
yeah,
that, no man will want you if you get fat. So it did. It started with her and just those messages.
yeah.
And I can remember, if I look back on a picture of me from the seventh grade, I was essentially maybe a half an inch shorter than I am now. Right. I mean, I hit my top height, in seventh,
Yeah,
eighth grade,
yeah.
and I'm 5'5", and I was a size 7.
I'm thinking I'm in the UK, we've got different
Oh,
sizes,
okay.
and also school, like it for me,
Yeah.
primary 7 is when we're 11. So I'm wondering
Yes,
is that the same?
it's about 11.
Ah,
Okay,
okay, right.
12, 11,
About
12,
11,
depending on the
12.
child. I was 11
Yeah,
in, we would call it middle school here,
right,
usually,
right. So
right? And that's
primary
usually like
class.
maybe 6, 7, 8, or just 7, 8, depending.
Yes.
I'm older, so it would be in just seventh, eighth,
Yeah.
for me, right? And it was kind of that transition before you go to high school.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
And so you were practically the height that you are now,
Yeah.
just an inch out. Yeah.
Yes, I might have been 12 at this point, 11 or 12, right in there. And I remember, and so I know sizing is different, but
Yeah, size
I was
7.
I was
Um,
like 110 pounds. There was nothing heavy about me. And I had wanted this pair of jeans. There was a brand in the US called Ditto jeans.
okay.
And so this would have been like 1976, 77. And this pair of jeans, like all the cool girls had these jeans, right? And I wanted a pair. And I'd save my babysitting money to get these jeans. And I was just so happy with them. And I was in my history class, right? So here I am, 12 years old in history.
Yeah.
Um, you know what? And I can remember looking down. Now, back in the day, I don't know about y'all in the UK, but we would pour ourselves into our jeans here,
Yes.
back when
Like
we were
lie on the
teenagers.
bed, pull
Yes, lay on
everything
the bed,
in,
jump into a.
skinny as possible. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's international, right? So here I am, and of course, I look down, and I had thigh bulge. Well, they were so tight. I mean, and I
Yes.
was sitting, but I remember being horrified. I remember looking down at my legs and being horrified that there was this bulge. And now looking back on that as a mature person, knowing that I was a little bitty thing.
Yeah, you were so small, but
Yeah.
still using that conditional, that
Mhm.
like a cultural parent, isn't it? Yeah.
Absolutely. So we
Yeah.
had all these cultural messages as well. So we had,
Absolutely.
and almost every girl I knew by then was obsessed with how they looked, with our looks and our body, and who had boobs and who didn't, and who'd started their cycle and who hadn't, and, you know, who
Yeah.
was fat, who was
Yeah.
thin. I mean, it was just such a focus.
Yeah.
And I can remember doing crazy things like having an apple for breakfast and a yogurt for lunch. And then whatever diet dinner my mom was making, because it was just her and I at that point. And so it was always, she always had some diet, whatever it was, a hamburger patty and cottage cheese and lettuce. I don't know.
Yeah, so always on a diet, and mum
Mm-hmm.
was really, really, really driven by being thin,
Yes.
and wanted you to be thin.
Yes.
And it sounds like
Yes.
you were
And I was.
tiny
Yes.
and
But
horrified to
yeah.
see the shape of your legs sitting on a seat.
In one of those funky little desks. And so just sitting here at my little desk and then looking down at my legs. Well, of course you're going to, if you're poured into a pair of jeans,
Yeah. Yep.
of course your thighs are going to poke up a little bit. I was also dancing, as you know, Kaz, at
Yeah,
that
of course.
point. And so I was very active, and yeah.
And
fit.
trying to really fit in and belong into these, I don't know what you call them over your way. They would call them like gangs in Scotland. I belong in this gang or that gang when we're at
Yes.
school. I don't know if it was like
Yeah.
that for
We
you.
would call the clique.
Click,
A
yeah,
clique.
click, yes. We've got that word
Yes.
here too. So if you
Yes.
fitted in and belonged, you were one
Mm-hmm.
of the in girls or yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's painful too.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So much pressure.
And trying
Uh,
to stay in that clique.
yeah. And how nasty young girls can be to each other.
Very, which keeps
Very.
all of that stuff going.
Yes, it
That's,
does.
yeah,
And that falling into adulthood, I think about all of the different messages that continue to bombard women. I remember I knew sign language in high school. I was fairly fluent. We had a small deaf community in our high school, and I'd done a little bit of interpreting. And when I was first married to my husband, so this is, almost 42 years ago now, and by then I was probably very healthy, size 9 or 10. So I was probably, 120 to 130 pounds, right? Still very a little curvier, but still very attractive, very trim, fit. And a girl that I had known from high school had said, "Hey, I've been interpreting for this band." And she was going to have to take maternity leave. She had gotten married younger than I had, and was already pregnant, and I was 20 at this point, maybe 21. And she had said, "What do you think? You don't have kids yet. Do you think you could take this summer tour?" And it was however many dates, and I would get to go travel with this rock band, and I would get to interpret, and it sounded like a super cool opportunity.
very
And
exciting.
go ahead and learn these songs, and then you're going to have an audition. And I was like really getting excited, and then I remember her coming back to me and saying, "Oh, by the way, do you think you can," it was like 2 months away, "do you think you can drop 20 pounds by then?"
Oh my
Because,
goodness, Paula.
yeah, because you don't quite fit the image. And I'm thinking, what does it have to do with my ability to interpret?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes. So
What does
all of
anything?
these,
Yeah.
yes, all of these. And then I remember being with my husband and some of his family in this restaurant. And of course, then I had long hair to my bottom, very thick, long hair to my bottom that I'd had my whole life, right? I hadn't cut it yet. And, in my early 20s, here I'm in this restaurant with my husband, and I had this gentleman who approached me. He was from a modeling agency, right? He wanted to give me my card and asked me, and I'm still that same size, right? Asked me if I'd ever consider being a plus size model. I was like, no.
So
So
he came up to you in the restaurant and
in the
interrupted your
restaurant
meal.
saying, "Oh, I love your hair, and you're a beautiful girl, and all the things, and I really think that you could wear these clothes, and we're really looking for some plus size models." And of course, this is the early 80s by this point, and
But there's
I guess
two
size
messages.
9, 10 was still that was plus size.